Real Study with your hosts, Mr. Snidbits, Black Girl Marvel, Mr. Marvelite, all the movie things, the pre-review with Super Kami Guru, and me, the Real Study movie voice guy. Let's go to the poster wall.
And welcome to the Real Study. I am Mr. Snidbits, and with me, as always, we have the wonderful Black Girl Marvel, Mr. Marvelite, and all the movie things. And my camera's really wacky there, but that's okay. We're going to move on over to the. I am looking very small right there. We're going to move on over to the drive-through, or the drive-in, not the drive-through, and we are going to discuss the movies you just saw, including Free Guy, Fast Color, and A Knight's Tale. But there are a couple of other films that have been kind of passed up in a way. One was Uncle Buck, and then I finally got to see Shang-Chi. So there we are. Welcome, guys. How you guys doing tonight? Cool. And thank you, Real Study viewers, Real Study students, Real students, for the technical difficulties. We are up and running again and doing good. And now we actually have audio synced, so you guys should see everybody properly and everything's good. All right. Let's, since we're a little behind, move right into a quick synopsis of my view on Shang-Chi, because I had a request to give my view. And I got to hear everybody's take for 3 months, back and forth. Oh, what did everybody think? Oh, what did, and everybody's like, oh, and there's a big controversy where a lot of people seem to think it sucks. And there's this like constant common thread about the people that say it sucks. And we all know what that common thread seems to be. Dude bros and people of my hue, if you will. And sure. And so I watched the movie trying to set everything aside, trying to set the positive from my Marvel fans, from you guys. And I know, how this group feels about Marvel, and we're all pretty on board with it. We'll still critique, but we're all fans. And so I realized, I should just put all this aside, and I watched it. And, it's a bit of a slow burn. I didn't expect that kind of slow draw, but when that movie gets going, holy crap, that movie gets going. Like, I didn't expect that final sequence between him and his dad and the dragons. And spoiler alert, we're going to get into it. So if you haven't seen Shang-Chi, mute me now. But the battle between the traditional dragon and the soul eater was spot on. I loved it. This is one of my more favorite Marvel movies, actually. I'd put it in a top tier, but I wouldn't put it at the top of the top tier. I'd put it at the bottom of the top tier, because I put them in 3 tiers. So yeah. So anyway, for me, I really enjoyed it. I'd probably give it an 8, because I will be watching it again. It gave me the feels. I think, anything with the dad, though, give me the feels. That's just the way it is. So yeah, I know I didn't get to join the conversation. I know I would have preferred to, but hey, I really wanted you guys to be able to talk about it fresh. So that was awesome. So there's my quick view of Shang-Chi. And if you guys have more questions about it, we can talk about it later. So let's move on to Uncle Buck real quick from last week. We had a request from all the movie things to watch Uncle Buck for kind of the month of November, a holiday kind of bringer in, if you will, of the winter months. And so what was your take on Uncle Buck this time around, and why did you choose that one, all the movie things? You you just watched Ghostbusters in the theater? Right. So it was playing like at a local theater. Oh, what? Are we seriously running into that problem?
Yeah, it seems like it. I'm looking at the chat. There's no sound.
Ask now. Are you guys hearing
Okay,
any
I'm
of
actually
us
playing
now?
it from. I'm watching it on Twitch. I can hear people.
You can?
Yeah, I can hear people too.
Let me test. I mean, if we're having problems.
Watch for me, and it makes me laugh every single time. It never really gets old for me. Um, Also, Macaulay Culkin is so good in it. Like he's just both the kids are really great. You know, Gabby Hoffman's great in it. And it's just classic moments that just are great to rewatch, and it's just a kind of a pretty wholesome film. I would say so. Yeah, it was just good to rewatch it, and it's one of those things like I would love to discuss from other people and get their perspectives too. Because for me, most of the people that I know, it's kind of a unanimous thing that people actually enjoy Uncle Buck. So I will be surprised if
So
people don't like it. But
let me be the first, just not a
I'm warning you
naysayer, but
now.
just
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember
already
I
know.
remember as a kid it not being a more popular Hughes film. It was actually one of his least popular films, because it was one of his last major like Hughesy, Shermer, Illinois films. I enjoyed it this time around again, but I think I was really annoyed by this teenager character, and I think it's because I'm a parent now. I just wanted. I know that's the point. I know that the whole point is you're supposed to be frustrated with her, but I didn't see the reason. And I guess she's a teenager, so maybe that's the only reason. But it drove me a little nuts, but on more of
Yeah,
just like from a film
she is
perspective. I
annoying.
don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
So it wasn't. I don't know. I can handle annoying characters when I think they're bringing something, but I think she like hammed up the annoying a little too far. But the only other criticism I have, and otherwise I didn't I sat with my wife and watched it. We don't get to watch a lot of movies together, so that was fun. But the costume design in this movie was atrocious. It looked like somebody raided a drapery shop and pasted draperies over all the people, especially the
that's the
main lead
times.
women. I
Yeah,
know, but like
the
you can
women did
tell.
wear a
You know
lot
what
of
the
like.
80s was like?
No, I know, but this was worse than normal. Like I've seen a lot of 80s movies lately. I've been kind of going through them, and none of them had like. You should just go back and rewatch just to watch the costume design. It blew my mind. Bats and I were talking about it pretty thoroughly, and I do know this obviously had to be Shermer High School as well, because if it's taking place in a Hughes film
Yeah,
in the Chicago area, it's got to be Shermer High
right.
School. They don't mention it, but anyway, uh, Mr. Marvelet, what do you have for Uncle Buck?
Uncle Buck. I mean, I don't know what it was about like movies and all that era, and like going up into the mid '90s, where like movies like Uncle Buck, Breakfast Club, they played over on television like over and over and over again. And it's
Right.
been so long since I've seen Uncle Buck, but I think the biggest thing for me is that I was on board with the film just because John Candy was in it. Um,
Right.
John Candy is one of those characters. Him and now I'm hearing myself. Uncle Buck. I mean, I don't know what it was about like movies.
Me
I
too.
can hear myself. Yeah.
It's like it's playing through one of our screens. It's
Yeah.
not this one.
So I'll try to. Every time I hear my voice, it throws me off. Um, but like John Candy, Chris Farley, actors and comedians that we lost way too soon. And I think when you think of just like John Candy, you think of like that big lovable guy, and I really feel like it's kind of the start of like an era where you had like the movies where you had that one mess up uncle. I was just this weekend watching Clifford with my kid, and the uncle that in the film reminded me of Uncle Buck a lot.
Oh, funny.
Just like a big mess up, always trying to
Yeah.
fast talk. Has a heart of gold and ends up doing well at the end, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like the sister didn't trust him, and it was
hmm
like everything about him was just falling apart. And John Candy plays that character really well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I think it's just more relatable because I think we all have that family member that's just kind of a big screw up, but you love them because they are.
yeah,
And
yeah. You
and
know,
so yeah,
deep down that they have a good heart. Yeah,
yeah, yep.
that's cool. I like that.
How about you, Black Girl Marvel? What are you feeling about Uncle Buck this time around?
I've never seen it before. This is my first time watching Uncle Buck.
Oh
Ooh,
wow, okay. Then I'm glad we went to you last. That's great.
Thanks for
Let's hear
including
it.
me. Like I actually saw it before. This is my first time seeing it, and I haven't watched a lot of John Candy films, but I know of his legend. I think the main thing I've seen John Candy in is Home Alone. That's
oh,
like
you're right.
and I was
The
like,
polka
he's
player.
funny.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah,
I was like, he's great. Like he stole the movie for me, like in that one
Totally. You're right.
scene that he had. So like
Yeah.
that's how I know John Candy. And I knew of him and things like that, and how he passed away, stuff like that. So
That's
yeah.
interesting.
Watching Uncle Buck, I was like, okay, this is a 90s film. So I had to take myself back to like a 90s mind frame because my 2021 brain would be like, oh, this is rife with blah blah blah. And we don't do that with certain
There's
movies,
some problematic things in there. Yeah.
made back then. I will say I agree with Mr. Snitbits. I couldn't stand the daughter. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Couldn't stand her because I felt like there was a piece missing. And again, 90s movies for me are very rushed. They're like, let's get to the stuff, let's get to the show, let's get to the, and that's how they make movies now. Like stuff is like more drawn out, there's more plot, there's more, exposition, there's more stuff. I was like, what's her deal? Like, was it because her parents worked all the time and she felt like they didn't notice her, so she's doing things to get their attention? It wasn't cemented for me enough to just be like, why are you a dick to everybody?
Right.
Now, to be
Like, do you
fair,
not like
her parents were
anybody?
some of the worst movie parents I've ever seen.
No,
Like,
I
ever.
totally agree, but also I feel like they're working parents.
Yeah.
Right.
And I had a working parent, and I get how like she was always away. She's still away, but it took me a little bit to understand as an adult, like to get older. You didn't even know that, like, actually I had to grow up fast, but there's a whole different discussion. But I had to like figure out that she's essentially doing this for me. Not to say that it's right, but you kind of understand in a way. And I felt like she was just mean to everybody. I get being mean to your parents, that's just what teenagers do. But you were mean to your siblings, and it's like, geez Louise, like they're kids.
Yeah, no,
You're
she
the
treated them like
older-
crap.
Like
Bad.
she was like, and it was like Maisie might be the cutest thing since sliced bread. Okay.
Right.
And
Yeah, she's super cute.
I just didn't understand that. But overall, like Macaulay Culkin is the quintessential 90s child, just cuteness, funniness.
Right.
You can see that the kid was, the Dakota Fanning of the 90s, or however you want to reverse it. She's the Macaulay Culkin of the thousands, however you want to do it. But like those like traits of just being like aware and all that kind of stuff. I was watching him like, yo, look at baby Macaulay, like just
Yeah, he's so good.
out
He's just like he's on, dude. Yeah.
I'm like, he's just crushing it out here. But overall, I thought the story was very nice. I'm a big fan of John Hughes. Like I think I've probably seen a nice handful of like John Hughes movies.
Right.
And unbeknownst to a lot of people, I want to be the John Hughes of my generation when I become a director. I want to be like the first female Black John Hughes to tell like Black stories in that type of way, like Black families and Black.
That'd be cool. Yeah, yeah.
Stuff like that. You don't see stuff like that, but that's another conversation.
Well,
But,
actually, no, that's a conversation for 2 movies from now, to some degree.
well, actually, yeah. But I'm a big fan of his. So watching the John Hughes movie was already aces for me. John Candy, I feel like balances comedy and like that levity very well for a comedian, because I know he's like an outright comedian, but sometimes when comedians try to get serious, I never believe it. And I really believe it. And I love that he was like the crux of the daughter. You know what I mean? Like everybody ate her shit. Sorry for my language, but everybody ate it. And he was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he wasn't.
And he was like, that's cute.
All right through it, right? Yeah.
He's like, I do this for a living. Like, what do you mean? Like, essentially, we were kind of like the same person a little bit, because he's like, I do this Like, what are you doing? I created this. I'm better
Right.
at this than you.
Right.
You know.
I'm a
I
pro
loved it.
turd. Yeah, no, he already
You know
had
what I mean?
being a
Like
turd
he,
down.
he,
Yeah.
he knew about this, but I
You
also
can't
love
bullshit a
the
bullshitter.
underlying
Right.
story of him teaching her that she has somebody to fall back on, them teaching him how to love,
Mm-hmm.
and to get his life together. Like it was actually a very nice story. Just I feel like a little sprinkles was missing because the daughter was annoying. But other than that,
I think maybe the studio had something to do with that,
cool.
although he had
Yeah.
already proved himself as a director, Hughes. So like maybe not. I don't know.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
John Candy, Lala, I do encourage you, please visit his filmography if you don't know much about his filmography. He goes all the way back to Canada with SCTV and Eugene Levy,
Yeah.
Rick Moranis,
Yeah.
Catherine O'Hara. Brilliant career. Even like playing the terrible brother in Splash or
Yeah.
Cool Runnings. If you haven't seen that, it's
Horrors.
So good,
fantastic. You know,
yeah.
there's a lot
I've
of
seen Cool
fun.
Running.
Oh,
I've
okay,
seen
cool,
Cool Running.
cool.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
But he
But
runs the
I've seen-
gambit.
Great outdoors.
Great
No,
Outdoors.
I'll give
If you haven't seen Great
I'll
Outdoors.
make that a segment on TikTok, like my John Candy.
There you go.
Oh, that's a
yeah,
great
that'd
idea.
be
Do a whole
pretty cool.
John
Yeah, that's a good
Candy
idea.
like run.
Just I'll start from the beginning because I could go on Wikipedia to start from the beginning.
No,
and,
You should
totally.
watch some of those
Yeah.
SCTV skits. They're wild.
you know,
They're way
just
over the
watch it.
top.
'Cause I think
It's
he's
just crazy
funny.
to see
I
all
will
them.
say anything I've seen him in, like even if it's just like a little thing or like, you know, the things I've seen him in recently or anything like that, he hits for me, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like I don't think I've seen anything where I'm like, ugh, that they could have just taken that out. He's always like the best part. And for him to be that big of a guy, and I mean like physically tall, because you could tell he was at least like,
Oh yeah, he was like 6'3" and 400
Yeah,
pounds or something. He's a
like,
big
he
dude.
was a big dude. But for him to have like physical comedy like that, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm sure they had some help and
Right.
stuff like that. But still, for him to do some of the things that he was doing, I felt like just top notch. You know.
I agree.
Have you seen his kids? He got some
Or what?
handsome kids. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
He
yeah.
got some handsome kids.
Oh.
So let's just do a quick, just the number review, no exposition, and we'll move right into the next movies because we still have an hour and a half, about a half hour
Cool.
per film. So let's start with the chooser of the film, all the movie things, rate Uncle Buck, officially
All
for
right,
the real study.
8.5 for me. That's always a good time for me. So
Nice. How about you, Mr. Marvelite?
I have to probably say about the same, 8.5.
All right. How about you, Black Girl Marvel?
I'm gonna give it an 8.
An 8. Oh, I'm gonna be the.
Yep.
Everybody's gonna hate me. I give it a 7. It's a solid 7. It's watchable, but it's not my favorite Hughes film, or my favorite Candy film, or my favorite Macaulay Culkin film. It's not even my favorite Shermer, Illinois film. Anyway.
What? No, I'm sorry. No, it's
Is it your favorite Giant Pancakes film?
Ooh.
it's gotta be.
I think that does okay on a Giant Pancake scale. It gets a 10. I will give that movie a 10 for
Yeah.
Giant Pancakes.
Oh, can I say this real quick? Can I say
sure.
this real quick? The boyfriend Bug, I feel like somebody has used that name before in other teen movie thingies. I've heard a boyfriend being named Bug before, and when I heard that name, I was like, oh, this is where they got it from. Obviously, had to have been. Somebody had to be like a fan of John Hughes, just wanted to throw a little tidbit. And because I've heard
Yeah.
young high school boys with that name before, like multiple times in like film, television, and I was like, this is weird.
And I
But
think if it was based off of that, it was not a term of endearment, but they took it that way.
Right.
True.
Right. No, the 90s
Your
did that
Bug.
though. They
Oh,
took all
thank
the
you.
Oh, cool.
slacker became a positive thing. Like
Right.
90s turned everything on its head. Okay, so we're gonna move into the Free Guy movie, the Ryan Reynolds film. Ryan Reynolds, Jodie Comer, Taika Waititi, Lil Rel Howery, and then Joe Carey are the main actors in this film. And it is a video game movie, literally a movie about a video game that doesn't exist. If you haven't seen it, of course, there will be spoilers. We will be going into some detail. But this is one of those films, from my perspective, whenever we cover these kinds of films on the real study, it feels like we're going to hit kind of well, really, do we talk about this portion of the film? Because it's not going to really do anything. I don't know. It just feels like one of those to me. I picked this movie, so I'm going to give.
Can go on.
Sure, or long tangents just about maybe some of the social things that the movie was talking about, which I did enjoy. So my initial impression, I did pick this film, was That it was over the top, which it needs to be. The CG was over the top, but I liked that because that element of it didn't need to look real. In fact, it needed to look a little
You're right.
fake.
Yeah.
Ryan
Like
Reynolds
hyper reality.
nails it. The thing I felt the movie was lacking was some kind of pacing with the story. I felt like it was jumbled a little too much for me. That's the biggest gripe I have about it, other than the end. But I told you guys that before the show. That's just my
I
initial
wasn't
impression.
here.
Oh, there's the end. There's the kind of big gratuitous Disney moment, and that kind of like I was like, all right, well.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for hosting with the one viewer, Mr. Marley. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, why don't we go, Mr. Marmalite? What's your initial impression of Free Guy?
So this was an interesting film. It was actually it was in production right during the Disney Fox merger. So you can definitely see how in the end of the movie Disney was putting its stamp on it. And I think that would never have happened if Fox had not been sold to Disney. So ultimately, I mean, as as we are on the platform of Twitch and we are streaming this, and this is often where a lot of people stream games, and I know I game and stream on here. It was kind of fun just to kind of see the inside world and then see how the world would react to the game itself. And I thought it was a little bit stupid. How many times do we have to like really focus on Ninja before we could just kind of move on? But you had all of these different streamers that had little cameos and whatnot, and it definitely played into the idea of you know a multiplayer game that a big industry stole the code just to make it a little bit more realistic. You've got this couple, which they don't believe they're a couple, that had done it, and the girl is kind of that freedom fighter trying to at least get credit for the game because she they were told it wouldn't work, and then to find out that it did, and then to see how in the game all the characters have their own little lives. I think about my favorite part of the film was where every time Guy challenged one of the NPCs, like you could see like their own characteristics coming out, and it was just
Mhm.
a little bit of a domino effect for them. Um,
The
and I like
scathing
that
op-ed.
interaction between yes, and like the guy whose hands are always like this, and he just like didn't feel like it was comfortable to go anywhere else, and like
Right.
those little things, like that cracked me up. There were
Mhm.
lots of little holes in the plot line, and it did. In some cases, I do feel like the pacing was a little bit fast. And I know I've heard some of you guys feelings about how Taika Waititi was a little bit over the top in the film. But ultimately, I thought it was fun. It's definitely a rewatchable film. And of course, it's got Ryan Reynolds, so I'm already hot and heavy with it. So that's all I have to say at the moment.
Not hot and heavy.
Well,
Tell
I'm
us how
already
you really.
heavy. The heavy didn't have to happen. It was already there.
Black Girl
Oh,
Marvel, go ahead.
shout out my friend. That's a cheap shot. Um, when I started this film, I was like, oh, it's Ryan Reynolds, being Ryan Reynolds, and I immediately disliked it. I was like, I don't want to see this. And then, like most Ryan Reynolds movies, for some reason he starts very Ryan Reynoldsy, and then it gets real, like somewhere in the middle. You start to be like, oh, this is interesting. And he's taking. I think when he starts taking things seriously, that's when I enjoy Ryan Reynolds the most because mainly it's for me, and not to say I don't like it from time to time, but for me, it's always the same beats in his movies. It's like goofy, silly, turns into I'm a little serious but goofy, and then it turns into oh, okay, this is real, and I need to be serious, and the acting comes through for me. So, I think I started to like this film more once Jodie Comer's character came in with Ryan Reynolds' character.
Mm.
I think that's when he was kind of like by himself doing his Ryan Reynolds thing. I didn't like it. I like when he plays off against somebody because that's when he has to act. I think for me everything up until that point was very improv, freestyle. They were like this is the guy character. You just figure it out. And I know that's not what happened. I'm pretty sure he had lines. Like I'm not saying that, but I love it when he plays off somebody. I think it gives him a challenge and it makes him like work for the viewers. There were bits and pieces that I enjoyed about this. I really feel like Little Rel was funny to me. Sometimes his stuff was a little forced, and I was like, ooh, they should have did another take. But overall, I thought he was like a good addition. I liked his relationship with Ryan Reynolds. I feel like they played off each other like very well. Hands down, best character in this movie was Channing Tatum. Hands down.
I agree.
See, that kind of pulled me out of it.
A
though.
little
I was
Thanos
not- I was
That was
not
pretty
glove,
funny.
right? I love that.
That was the best thing in this movie to me because one, it was funny.
I didn't see it coming
Yeah,
for sure.
then
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming. Like it just had to be a face.
You're
And
like,
then
whoa,
three,
okay.
I know gamers that are like that.
Oh yeah.
That are like,
Oh, like
they're
every
very much
single one.
yeah, like you guys. And so it's Channing Tatum was like the best part of this. When I saw him in the beginning, I was like, is that Channing Tatum? I was like, wait a second. I didn't think he was going to come back. So him coming back in was like a huge surprise. And then him doing all that dance stuff. Channing Tatum needs to do more like comedy and leave like the serious stuff like on the cutting room floor because nobody cares. I think he should do more comedy. But overall, I thought the film was better than I expected it to be, and I will say that much.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. I feel like Channing Tatum's character was only good when you had cuts between him and the real world player. Like that interaction was hilarious.
Yeah.
No, like all of that, like that's what all that encompassing is like hilarious to me. But also, I feel like he gave such a sterling performance as this kid living with his mom, and he's 22. And like it was just, I was like, give the guy an Emmy for this or something. He just
No,
needs an
because
Emmy
he
for-
embodied the way that kid acts in the game.
exactly.
He does know what he's doing. He is slick in the game. He does know how to find code that other people can't find or like ways
Yeah.
in. So like he is in
Right.
that world a badass, but he's still that douchey kid. No, I totally agree. Like it was
Yeah.
spot on.
Exactly.
How about you? All the movie
for
things.
death
I
blow.
feel like it was very, very
Right.
I love it. All the movie things. What do you think of of Free Guy?
Yeah, like I didn't know what to expect with this one. I mean, I was excited to see it. You know, it looked just from like the trailers, and I try to avoid like other things. I just try to stick to the trailers. And yeah, I like absolutely love this movie. I saw it in the theater, and there's quite a few people in the theater, and so I'm also feeding off that energy that's in there. And there's that moment. I mean, I was just having a good time in the movie. Like, there's a lot of like funny moments. I didn't have any problem with like the pacing. For me, it felt right. Taika's character was probably the only one that, and I'm like a huge Taika fan, but he's great when he has something to work with. I don't feel like this was the best material he had to work with. Because I mean, obviously, I've seen a lot of his other stuff where he is an actor in it as well. But a lot of those times too, he's also directing. So I feel like maybe there's an element there. But yeah, so his character was the only one that was kind of like I was trying to like want to get past. But yeah, and then that moment, I mean, in the theater, like I don't like get audible or like loud in a movie very much, but that was one moment that when the shield comes out and then Chris Evans, I'm sorry, like that was yeah, I was done after that point. I was like, okay, this movie's insane. I just had a blast with it. I really enjoyed this movie. So it's definitely like, Ryan Reynolds, you know what to expect with him, and like yeah, and like I just watched Red Notice too, where I was like, man, like I was thinking too with that film was like I really want to see Ryan Reynolds take a
not be Ryan
yeah
Reynolds.
let's take a
Do
let's
something
shift things
serious
to-
for a minute.
right. Let's
Give us
do
a break.
something real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, there's a
So-
problem with comedic actors, and this is something that I think certain actors like Tom
Yeah, they
Hanks,
get
Robin
stuck.
Williams understood that you have to
Yeah.
break away in order to make that comedy worthwhile and lasting. The reason everybody got tired of
Right.
Adam Sandler, Will Ferrell, Jim Carrey is in general is because they kept doing the same shtick. Like it gets old.
Yeah.
So I think people are
So-
feeling that, especially now with two
Mhm.
movies
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
same
And
kind of
if you
jokes.
think about it, that's where Melissa McCarthy. That's where Melissa McCarthy is for me. Like
Yeah,
she's
I can
every
see that.
movie you're like, oh, she's
Yeah.
about to hit.
Yeah.
She's about to- and it's like she was so funny. It's just like, ooh,
Yeah.
same jokes
Mhm.
because your husband and you always write these
Yeah.
movies that you're
We go back
starring
to the
in. So
Gilmore
it's like the
Girls.
same. joke.
Right. Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I think the only time
no,
I've
for
seen a
real.
movie where I felt like Ryan Reynolds was a little bit more serious, but he still had like those quips and stuff was I think it was Six Underground with in Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was kind of playing that guy who, you know, his world kind of fell around him, and yes, he had a little bit of the snips, but you could see that there was a lot of pain behind him, and that, you know, he just was willing to just dive into that character, like
Yeah.
the character was diving into his role in that movie. So
But see, I'd rather see him in something like The Voices, where he has to stretch a little bit further and dig into comedic stuff as well. But his comedy in that movie is more situational than it is him doing quips. And I think that's what makes him capable. We know he's capable, but he's not doing it yet.
Oh
But
yeah.
I
He's
would
not
love to see
I
him
pushing
want
in
it.
a
people,
full blown dramatic
I
role
want
and see
people
what
to
he can
like
do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to like direct him and be like, no, Ryan, no ad libs. Like I want people to actually. I feel like when you're stars at a certain point,
Yeah.
people do hire you for like that Ryan Reynolds thing, that
Right.
Dwayne Johnson thing, right? So they'll just let
Mm-hmm.
you do whatever you want to do. But I feel like a director needs to be like, nah, that's not my vision, and nah, that's
Right.
not what I was looking for.
yeah,
Do this the
Mm-hmm.
way that I need you to do it. I will say I'm not a Taika fan. I feel like Taika is my James Wan, but
Whoa.
oh,
Whoa.
I'm just not a
shots
Taika.
Right.
fired.
See, I didn't say
Wow.
that. I just said I'm
I
like
know.
on middle of the road on Taika right now because I just want to see more from him. Like I want to see him direct
Taika's like
more.
my James Bond until he gives me a movie where he's not in it, a la Quentin Tarantino, because I get tired of that too. It's like, okay, we get it. You want to act in your movies and stuff, like relax. But one of the funniest part for me with Taika, because I think he was extra, but I think that was his character. So I think he was supposed to kind of jump out of the screen and like rub you the wrong way, and I think he achieved that. But one of my favorite parts is where he tried to like where he was on the ground and he tried to like pump himself up. That part was hilarious to me.
Oh yeah,
I audibly laughed at that part because I know so many people who think they can do it and just can't do it. He was so confident in it, and that made me laugh. I can't remember his name, but the supporting guy that was like he's his friend or whatever.
the other tech.
The other tech.
Yeah.
I see him in a lot of tech things, and I would love. To me, he's a very capable actor. Everything I see him in, he's a very capable actor.
I'm gonna
Apex
destroy
Predator.
his name. I'm not gonna try it.
And I want him.
He was in the acapella movies. What are they called?
Glee.
He was in
Oh yeah, he was in the
Um,
Pitch Perfect movies. He played
Yeah,
the
he was in
guy with
Pitch
the
Perfect.
glasses that could
I believe he was
beatbox.
Zoe's
Yeah.
Extraordinary Playlist, which is a TV show. I believe he was in that as well. Or I'm getting him
Yeah.
mixed up with another person of color, which I have a tendency to do.
Now, what about Dude? We haven't brought up Dude at all. And apparently, I looked here, and a guy
Dude,
named
yeah.
Aaron Reed played Dude. So he was played by
Yeah,
a
he
real
played
guy.
the body, and then,
And they
yeah.
gave him the Ryan Reynolds.
Mhm.
I think that character might be
Catchphrase.
the shining star in the film. And that's, of course, Taika's character's
Catchphrase.
impression
It was
of
pretty good.
Blue Shirt guy. Because
Yeah.
he wears the blue shirt, and he even tells him, go
Mhm.
make him. And he's not made well because he's made with like crap code. And that
Yeah,
embodies
and
the
they
Taika
rushed it,
character.
and like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
I love the creative team, how they were like just utterly frustrated that
Yeah.
he was telling them to release it. It's like it's not done. Don't blame it. He's like, there are three things. I just TBD.
Do it. No, I do like
Yeah.
catchphrase. Catchphrase might be a good catchphrase. That's a good
Catchphrase.
I like
Yeah.
the girl that was just like, all right, get ready to be fired. Like, we're just going to put
Yeah,
this
yeah.
out.
There's like,
Get fired. It's fine.
Yeah. We're just gonna put out a dumpster fire. Who cares?
So there were a
Yeah.
lot of social implications that I like when comedies do this. I like it when a good comedy should have some kind of narrative about the society we're living in, and that kind of
Mhm.
grounds it. And this one is, of course, about the way we perceive gamers and the way that we judge them, even by how much they game, is brought on by this film. There are a couple of moments. It's not a lot, but there are a few moments, and I
Right.
appreciate those moments in these films. I don't know how I feel about seeing 100 people that are on the same platform with us smattered throughout the film, but it is what it is.
I feel like Free Guy was sponsored by Twitch or something. Twitch and YouTube.
Something.
Right. Or they gave him some money actually towards production. To,
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
So like, they were some producers and they're like, let's put you in the movie. Like,
Yeah, hey.
It's
Yeah.
like free
Yeah, I know,
advertisements,
I mean-
like the Fortnite
It's like product placement
llama
for
thing.
sure. It's like,
Oh yeah, no, it was absolutely, because the very first time you notice other than it really kind of just being GTA, like a giant GTA
yeah,
advertisement.
totally. Yeah,
It's an online multiplayer Kill 'Em All advertisement. All those games
Free
are like,
City
yeah, make this
versus Vice
movie.
City.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
other than that, the moment where they try to steal the disc and then launch out of the window and then they sail away on the Fortnite, sail, I was like, oh crap, here we go. Like, I just knew. So I don't know. It's at least the product placement was fan service, which is better than just
Right. Just like,
doing
hey,
it.
here's this product in the foreground framed perfectly so you always see it throughout this whole
Right.
scene. Like, yeah.
I hate that more than any other product placement.
Yeah.
Unless
There
it's,
was a
of course,
pretty
Wayne's
bad one
World.
in Superman.
I
that
hate
they
when people
cut.
just intentionally put product placements in front of things.
I know, right?
Yeah, like the Wayne's World one is pretty perfect. So yeah.
It is.
It's crazy, you know what I'm saying? It's like we want people to meet us and come,
Yeah.
come sponsor and give us like tickets and stuff. It's crazy,
Mhm.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm just looking at Einstein going, what are we talking about? But we're good. Okay, so
I will say I like the underlining story. Like, come out of the free guy game. I like the story of like the two best friends that were trying to start this company together. They got swindled by a bigger company because that happens more often than not.
Right.
Than what we realize, it does happen. I love the fact that obviously it was a love story. I think everybody caught that, but the characters. You're like, y'all love each other. Let's get it together. But I like that wasn't like I like that they put that all the way at the end. I was like, thank you, because it's really not about. I mean, it was throughout the thing because Ryan Reynolds' character was
little
essentially
pieces
that
here
guy.
and there. And,
Ryan Reynolds' character was Keys, essentially, which is a different manifestation of Keys. But I love the idea of a gamer creating an artificial intelligence within a game. I thought that was super interesting. When that came to be like a thing that was spoken out loud, I was like, oh, I would play a game like that where my character learned and was able to adjust to different because if I could just like put obstacles in their way and they figure things out and you know what I mean, like something like I thought that was very interesting.
So you'd rather be the DM of your video game than the player.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to be the player depending on the game, but I actually wouldn't mind being like the dungeon master. I wouldn't mind just like creating scenarios and having my character figure it out, like pretty much learn on the go and being able to throw anything at them. I think that'd be a very interesting game, especially depending on what world it took place in. So for me, I was like, the gamer in me was like, I'll definitely pay for that game. Like, definitely, like, take a stupid. I'd definitely pay for that.
I think that's happening when somebody's phone rings. That is my best guess.
yeah,
Somebody's.
There's some
There's like
distortion
this,
going on.
It goes.
the stream is having some like noises.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm almost positive it's an interference, not from here, because I'm on a PC.
I don't hear anything.
So anyway, it's okay. It only happens. It's only happened twice, and we're good. Okay, so
Okay, cool.
Let's go ahead and give our rating on Free Guy. If we have a little bit more to say, we've got a few minutes. Let's go ahead and do that. And then after Free Guy, we're going to go ahead and move to the pre-review and hope we don't lose our sound. So
we're going to play a game of guess what we're saying.
We managed it last time when I did sign language. Told you guys to go to Discord.
Yeah.
That was great. Okay, so
that might be a good alternative in the future if something like that happened to have a Discord stream so people can come in and listen to us if need be. It's the same backup. It's a nice backup.
I don't know how I would work that, but I'll look at it. Okay, so the movie Free Guy, I'm going to give it. The further I get from the movie, I'm not sure if you guys ever experienced this, but sometimes the further I get from a movie, the better it gets in my mind. Sometimes the further I get from some movies, the worse it gets in my mind. This is one of those ones. The further I get from it, the more it becomes lackluster in my mind. It's okay, and I think I'm going to give it a 6.5. I don't think it's a solid 7 because I don't think I would rewatch this over and over again. I did attempt a second watch this week just passively, and I still never made it all the way through. So I don't know, 6.5. Kid me, 10. What are you talking about? There's a lightsaber in
it. Right.
So yeah. How about you, Black Girl Marvel?
I would give this a 7 simply because I feel like I like seeing Chris Evans, obviously. I like the shield popping up. I love that it was pretty much like a FU to Fox, like, we got your stuff.
I know, like we
Oh
got
my
your
goodness,
stuff.
yes.
I really
we're
feel like
adding our
that's what it was. It was like a
Yeah.
very nanny like thing, because like then they put out a lightsaber. It was a whole deal. Like, it was just,
Yeah.
it was a lot. It did have funny moments, so like I would give it a 7. It's not rewatchable for me. Usually 8s and up are rewatchables, like, or like 7.5 and up. Things like this, I probably will never watch this again. I will never partake in this again unless somebody was like, "Hey, let's watch Free Guy," and I was like, "All right, sure."
So I have to redeem this a year from now, basically.
Sure.
Maybe.
No, wait. If a movie's been reviewed on The Real Study, I don't think we're going to review it again. There's too many movies. It's already been done.
Right.
Wow.
Ooh.
It's in the
Shut
record book.
We never have to do The Conjuring again.
Exactly. I'm trying to get Juan out of the way, right? That's what we're working on.
He's super happy about that. He's like, yes.
It's not what we want.
I think Kid Me probably would have gave this like an 8.5, 9. Like, the Kid Me would have just been like looking at all the, but I mean, yeah, maybe like an 8.5, 9, simply because still the kid, I would want more product placement of like things I would have known at that age, and maybe they would have had that depending on, if they came out when I was like 12 years old. But I would have liked it because it was just like kid things and shoot 'em up, bang bangs and stuff like that, powerful women, and I was like, oh, I don't know, so I like that.
To answer Blind Biggie's question, and thank you for being here, along with the rest of the real students or real study listeners, however you want to label yourself, we really appreciate you guys being here. And to answer your question, no, we have not reviewed Old. And if you want to have us review a film, there is simply a way of gathering tickets. And once you have enough tickets, you can go in and redeem the film, and we will review it. It takes 5,000 tickets, I believe, is what I marked it at. I think I upped it a little bit. So, you can always, we want to make it an interactive review show rather than just like listening to 4 people constantly give their permanent opinions and never hearing what you guys have to say. Speaking of our opinions, Mr. Marvelite.
So I feel like this movie did a lot better of a job doing the cameos, like the little Easter eggs than the Space Jam movie did.
Oh man, yeah, jeez.
Yeah, it was. That was just a horrible stew.
Right.
But we have this. It's not perfect. It had a lot of interesting things. I definitely liked, like Black Girl Marvel said, the emotional kind of plot line with Guy being created as a love letter to this girl, and how he knew all of her likes and all of the things that she was interested in, and then finally at that end point being, I'm not real, but there's somebody out there who made me for you, and that was definitely, I think, a better ending than just the world was saved and all the characters were saved. So I would say in it, for me, it's rewatchable. So I would say an 8. It's not perfect, but it's something I would definitely go back and watch again. But this is coming from a guy who loves to watch Pixels, so
I like Pixels too.
I love that, and I love the references, and because of that, I love the references. I'm willing to look over Fire Blaster and all that kind of stuff, but definitely I enjoyed the movie, and I would go back and watch it again. And for a kid, 12-year-old, 10 for me. So
all the movie things.
I'm gonna give it an 8. I had a good time. I'd probably rewatch it. Probably not as much as I rewatch Uncle Buck and Ghostbusters and like those kind of things, but those are just like But it was fun. I had a blast in the film, and I am very aware that like those experiences that I have in the theaters very much lend to how I see the film and how I feel about the film. So, 12-year-old me, would have like loved this. It would have been like a 9.5 for younger me too. So,
but we can all be honest. This movie was made for 13-year-olds. Like that's the like even though I think it's even
literally,
isn't it?
It's like 13-year-olds.
I think it's R-rated.
Like, really?
Is it R-rated?
What, Free Guy?
PG-13. PG-13. So yeah, I wanted to double check. I was like,
I was about to feel really guilty because I let my 6-year-old.
I know. Like, where's the?
That's bad.
What did I miss? Like, yeah.
So yeah, and Yeah, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
That being said, there's a few questions about how tickets work. Just to let everybody know, bottom left-hand corner of your chat or right to the left of the chat, there should be a ticket stub. It's purple, and you should be able to redeem those. As you watch, the little box will turn green. If you tap it, you'll gain extra tickets for doing so. And the more tickets you have, the more you can do those various things in there. And I'm going to be discussing things with the real study panel here to see if we can have cooler things in there, because they're pretty generic other than the guide the raid or the pick the movie. But we are just kind of a movie review show, so there's not like a ton in there. Anyway, that being said, I wanted to make sure there was nothing else said in there that I was missing. I don't think there is. They're just chatting, which is fantastic. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move over to the pre-review, and then we're going to get back to one fairly serious film and then one classic, and we will see how that goes. For now, enjoy the pre-review with Sean.
How's it going, real steady viewers? I'm Sean, and I'm back with this week's pre-review. Let's start off in the theaters with King Richard. Will Smith plays the role of Richard Williams, father to Venus and Serena Williams, two of the greatest tennis players to ever play the game. And this movie's going to tell us the life and times of them and the trials and tribulations they had growing up, and the plan that Richard Williams had for his daughters, and how he helped them fulfill their dreams of being absolutely amazing. Next, let's get into the holiday spirit with Michael Jai White and Bruce Campbell, who are taking us on an incredible story of Black Friday. Tells this tale of some supermarket workers that are Toy Story workers who are preparing for Black Friday, but end up having to deal with a zombie apocalypse instead. This looks amazing. I cannot wait to watch it. I mean, Michael Jai White, Bruce Campbell, you cannot go wrong with that combo. It's going to be awesome. And speaking of awesome, Ghostbusters Afterlife comes to theaters this week. Oh, I cannot wait for this. It's going to be so good. I am really hoping they nail this. The trailers have just been incredible. We know it has Paul Rudd, Finn Wolfhard. It looks awesome, and I know after that last trailer, everybody heard those voices. We all know many of the original crew are returning. I cannot wait for this one. Moving in streaming this week, Amazon Prime brings us The Wheel of Time. Now, this is a high fantasy story that's going to take us into the realm of magic. And unfortunately, I have not read the books that this series is going to be based off of. I know they are supposedly incredible, but from watching this trailer, I'm glad I'm going in blind, because it is going to be so much fun learning about all the stuff that's going on. Trailer looks amazing. I can't wait to watch this series. Also, it's a big week for Netflix. They bring us Cowboy Bebop. Now, for me personally, this is big. Cowboy Bebop is in probably my top 3 favorite animes of all time. I own it on so many different formats, it's not even funny. So, I am nervous. I am extremely nervous. The trailers have looked good. You know, the actors have spoke positively. I've seen them talk about how they watched the anime to learn about their characters. I just don't trust Netflix. I don't. Their history for animes turned into movies is not wonderful in the least. But I do have hope, so please let Cowboy Bebop be amazing. Thanks for watching this week, Real Study viewers. I'm Sean, and I'll see y'all next week.
And we're back from the pre-review, and we're missing a Black Girl Marvel, but that's okay. She'll be back. Oh, there she is. I love Sean's reactions to some of those movies. He's so excited about Ghostbusters. It gets me hyped. And I love his scathing review of Netflix there at the end. That was fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So, but that's why we have Sean do it, because he loves talking about what's coming out. And it gets me hyped, because I forget sometimes what's each week, because the kids, I get lost. So he helps me out. I love it. We're moving into a 2019 film called Fast Color. And this film is not as well known. I'm sorry, it's a 2018 film. I hadn't heard of this film until Black Girl Marvel had brought it to my radar. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce the film and give us her initial take.
Okay, so if you haven't seen Fast Color, which a lot of people haven't, because the production company, well, not production company, but like the, what do you call it, like the
Distribution.
Studio.
distribution company, pretty much screwed this film. And a lot of people don't even know really when it was released. Some say 2018, some say 2019. Like
Yeah.
it's a weird thing.
Mhm.
Because to me it was kind of like an indie film at first that they were trying to push. They were going to push up as like a main film, but then they were like, nobody's going to watch black people like that, and I was like, you're wrong. But it's mainly a story about three generations of black women who have a special ability that seems very rare, and it's pretty much like dematerialization. It's kind of like they break down the atoms and things. Well, that's part of it, and then another is that they can change. It's still atoms because it's like atmospheric and it's like particles that make it rain and things like that. And when they use this ability, they can see color, very bright, vibrant colors, and that's like a quote unquote side effect of their ability, which is a beautiful side effect if you think about it. A lot of side effects, you get weak and you need to eat, a lot of Flash, but like this you can see very beautiful colors. And again, it's about a grandmother, her daughter, and her daughter's daughter. So three generations of women with these abilities. And if I'm being honest, never seen this film before in my life, but I heard about the controversy, so I bought it on digital, and this is the first time I've watched it. Ever. Because I have a fear. Sometimes I have a fear that I won't like something, so I don't watch it so I can keep the hype up in my head. And this stops me from watching a lot of stuff sometimes. But I figured that if I pitched it as a movie, I would have no choice but to watch it. So I was like, that's a good way to push myself to watch it. I honestly will say this film started off a little slow. We'll be honest about that.
Yeah.
But once it picked up nicely. And I mean, not only in pacing of filming, but in dialogue and interactions and like what happens next. Like every scene started to be something that I was like, okay. Because I was being honest. I was like, all right, let's get to it. Because I'm not getting that, Let's make all these flashbacks count for something. Let's make all these cuts, count for something. And towards the end, they did. It all counted towards something. I think everybody's performance was very well. I will say this though, this is no offense, and this is not like a colorism type of thing or anything. But the lead, like the scientist guy that was dumb enough to open his mouth and not think that this girl was going to get away from him, he was like, I saw a young girl in the store. He said it. Now I know he don't look at them as people, so I didn't take that as like a racial thing. He was just because like they're experiments, they're like specimens. But he was like, it looked just like her, and I'm like, it really didn't. I'm like, no offense to anybody, but that child did not look like she was related to our main character at all.
No,
I mean, not even in the slightest. But whatever, it was her daughter, so you like there are similarities, but whatever.
Right.
I will say that one of the things I didn't like about this film is I wanted more from the powers. I wanted to see them in action more. And right when we got to like what could be done, like the grandmother at the end showing like how much power she actually has.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, dang. I was like, well, we were just getting to those meat and potatoes, and I was
I want to see. Yeah, I was like, I want to see what she's gonna do, like, when they went back into the police station and everything. I was like, what's going on there? What's gonna happen there? Like,
they made a prequel without knowing we would ever get a sequel, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I would want more because honestly, it's an interesting take on like abilities and new powers and things like that, which we don't see often. Everybody has telekinesis, but I feel like this is a different form of it, like a subcategory
level of manipulation. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I would have wanted more. Also, I wanted more from our main character. Like I liked her, that she finally got over her ability, and her ability is to like cut open the sky. Like she can make it rain. Like so, what else?
Super powerful. Yeah.
Like what else can she do? Can she rip open the earth? Because obviously her seizures were like a precursor to that. She can make it rain. Can she make it thunder? Can she make it snow? Can she? You know what I mean? Like what else could she do? And there was a lot of kind of like glossing over and letting you think your own, which is okay. But for a movie that I know we're not going to get a second film, I would have loved like just a little more, just a little more. But I
So-
thoroughly, I enjoyed it for what it was. I enjoyed it.
I actually
Yeah.
felt like it was the right amount. I like that as a segue. So for me, it was the right amount, and it's because it's a sci-fi drama. So we get all these different subgenres, and people, I think, get caught up in all the different types of sci-fi. For me, sci-fi genre shouldn't focus on the sci-fi; it should focus on the drama, and the sci-fi is a sprinkle. And I liked that about this. It didn't. There was enough left to the imagination that we don't know what they could do, which to me I like. And we've talked about this back and forth, you and I both, Lala, where sometimes one of us wants ambiguous and one of us doesn't. In this case, I like the ambiguity. But I think it was the right amount because the character's story was what drove us more than anything else. Her story about recovery, her story about fixing the sky, because obviously she broke the world. At least that's the way I read it. She's the reason the sky went away and we had no more rain because she couldn't handle things. I don't know. I don't know. I agree with the slow burn.
Our water is so hard to come by. Like I was kind of trying to figure that out throughout the whole. I'm like, why is this part of the earth so desolate? Why is there like people are hoarding water? Like why are they doing these things? So I'm assuming that she, by blocking herself, she blocked like the atmosphere because the guy kind of said something like she moves like tectonic plates at on a level that like she's moving like plates that shouldn't be moved.
Right, because they're in like the Midwest and there are no plates there, so she's actually making them rumble where there's no cracks. Is essentially
right. So
what
it's
you're
like,
saying.
did she affect something so much that she stopped a lot from happening in that general area? So I was just very curious. That's all.
No, that's
That was
fair.
interesting. I thought it was a new take on. I just love a fresh take on powers. That's all. Just love a fresh take.
Yeah.
All the movie things. What's your take on Fast Color?
Yeah, a lot of my stuff aligns with Lala's, and like the pace too was, it was slow in the beginning. I love the cast. The cast is great. And I like Gugu. She's done a lot of great things. I mean, she's in Loki, and she was in the morning show. She was great in the morning show. So it was good to see her in a lead, like a sci-fi kind of lead. And I do like this idea of like recovery and her struggling with this addiction. That is like, there's definitely like a deeper metaphor there between like her trying to like suppress who she really is and what she's experienced in life, which is a lot of times like when you are suffering from addiction, you're trying to check out from from things like her having these powers has probably traumatized her, and those things that she's done. So she's had to she's turned to addiction to like get rid of this, and not deal with it. So that was, for me personally, that was a big element to it. And yeah, like when it got to the end, it was just like, bam, okay, here's all this cool shit that could have happened, and then but this is all you get, is this little bit at the very end. It was like a very long origin story for Storm or something, like she turned into Storm, and
I can see that.
Yeah, and there's some very cool stuff, and I don't know if this is just me, but I felt like there was another metaphor or something to the effect of talking about like, because there's all these different generations of women, right? And I was taking away this idea of like that it was women like taking back their power, and like being okay with their power, and like taking that kind of back, and because they've had to suppress it for so long, right, and hide from it and run and not really show who they truly are. And so that's was something that I was getting from it. So it was a very deep, for me, it was a lot of deep stuff in there that I was picking up on. I did wish there was a little more we could have seen with the abilities, and it was a slow kind of drop of little drips of information they give us through here that kept me engaged for the most part. But yeah, it was just a little slower for me, but it was overall nice to see an indie sci-fi kind of thing. It gave me vibes of like Midnight Special. I don't know if you guys have seen Midnight Special, like That's another great indie sci-fi. That one has a little bit better pacing, I feel like, but yeah, I was getting that from it. So I love a good indie sci-fi film. So
All right,
overall, it's good. Yeah.
Mr.
I will
Marvel.
say, I will say
Oh,
real quick, I like the generational
Hmm.
realization that you gotta break what was taught to you from like the generations before.
Yeah, you got to break that cycle.
So I love that because
Hmm.
um, the grandmother's mother shielded her. Like she's essentially just like her daughter, and her daughter's daughter is just like her. Like she was like, I'm building this car to get out of here. Like I need to get out of
Hmm.
here. Like she didn't
Right.
take it anywhere, and she pretty much showed us that like the grandmother did to her granddaughter what her mother did to her, and essentially
mm-hmm.
what she did to her daughter that made her daughter
Right.
eventually like shun her gift and give it up and lock it essentially mentally for herself. So like I love that essentially they were like like with the daughter getting her power back, like figuratively and literally, it helped
Hmm.
the grandmother realize that she has the power
Oh
to
yeah.
kind of shut some stuff down, and then you're breaking the pattern that the daughter, like the granddaughter, won't ever have to be like that. You know,
Exactly.
she
Yeah,
won't
and
live
she could
a like that anymore.
live up to her full potential,
Right.
basically.
Oh, Ray
And I
said
love
that
that.
Hmm.
perfectly. You can only do what you know, and that's not always the right thing to do. And I
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
that's very well said. So, Mr. Marvelite, please.
So, I think I had a problem going into this because I had actually heard somebody state that it was a superhero film, and I'm like, okay, because I again until Black Girl Marvel even recommended it, I'd never
Yeah.
heard of the film, and
Hmm.
so I tried to go in knowing nothing, but then that kind of like pursued me of where I'm waiting for some type of big, moment of
Hmm.
anything, and then after I got past that, I realized that there was a little bit of symbolism in some of the stuff that was going on, which I thought was very interesting. The lack of water was almost symbolic to the lack of truth that all of them had. They
Mm-hmm.
really didn't know. Everybody was keeping something back from somebody else.
Hmm.
Ruth, what her daughter, was told, being raised that her mother was dead. Um, Ruth didn't know that there was a book chronicling the generations
Oh
of
yeah.
these
Yeah.
special women in the family, and that
Hmm.
you know her mother had this that she was trying to use as reference to find if there was another instance where we're talking about three generations that we're seeing on film, but they're talking about over 100 years or more
Mm-hmm.
of these women that are documenting the situations, and to the point of where you know Ruth's mother was allowed the granddaughter to go with her to the store, whereas when you hear a story later on where um, she was never allowed to leave the house, go out anywhere at all, and when she broke that and her mother found out, she couldn't even go to the front yard. And you
Yeah.
have this idea of they weren't segregated for them being of people of color, but it was because of their abilities that they were afraid people wouldn't understand them. And
Hmm.
once an individual did leave and go out, which Ruth was that one that left and ran away, um, immediately you have all of these government people that are wanting to find her because they're wanting to test on her and see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately you're fed this lie at the beginning where um, she's told by, I think, what was his name, Bob or whatever the lab tech guy was,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Bill,
the laboratory guy, Bill.
Bill Bob.
He basically said, you've hurt a lot of people, and I haven't seen one single person that she's hurt throughout the film. Like, it's just there's just
Hmm.
these
Yeah,
earthquakes.
that's
Herself a
true.
little.
Um,
Hmm.
Her
right,
wrists.
she hurt
Yeah.
herself
Yeah.
a little bit.
Oh
And
yeah, she
it was funny
tied
though
up a
because
lot.
they're thinking that she's moving the tectonic plates. I almost felt like it was her that was causing the vibrations. Like it was her herself, because I mean, how much she was convulsing during the seizures.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But as there were these little bits of truth that were coming out, and every time more truth was presented amongst any of them, you could see that Ruth was starting to gain more abilities back. She's sitting
Mm-hmm.
down, she's contemplating her daughter. They're out in town, so she's by herself, and you can see that the sky is starting to do the particle thing, and she's starting to
Hmm.
have more control. She
Her
breaks the
seizures are going
window.
away. Like yeah.
Yeah, like all of
Hmm.
these things are happening until finally she comes to the realization that you know everything she's done with everything she needed was with her daughter. And it was interesting because, and I'm sorry guys, spoilers, the moment when you realize that the reason why she gave up her daughter was the fact that she almost killed her.
Right.
um if you did notice she said for months she had no seizures while she had the baby, and then at that one moment where she's constantly in contact with the baby, she's focused on the baby, she turns away and the baby's out of reach of her. That's when the seizure happens again. And it's like that focus of love, because they were so guarded throughout the whole film that I mean, you don't see any of them hug until the end.
No, what you're leading on to a very good point there, Mr. Marvelite, because they, even when they're describing the feeling of how it works, they talk about love, and they're showing a lot of imagery of the mother-daughter, of the holding of the baby and the feet, and the way the girl describes it is like you get warm, and it feels like when you're about to cry, but you're happy. And I like that it was an added, like, not just that you're going to cry, but that when you're happy, because part of you's like trying to hold it in a little bit so you feel warmer. And I totally understood. I was like, I get that. Anyway, I'm seeing your breakdown. Go ahead.
No, but that's a good point, because if you think about it, when they show Ruth as a child using her abilities, like it was something natural, right?
Right.
Just
Yeah.
because her home life
She's just
was
a kid,
right?
just playing.
Think
Like,
about
yeah.
it, like the grass was green, and there were plants, there were flowers, and everything was colored, right? Like
her dad was there. You know, her
right,
dad
her dad was
present.
there. And so when certain love disappeared, to Mr. Marvelite's point, that's when like the seizure started, right? Like when she messed up the first time, and I think her mom got like a little bit angry. That's when like the seizure started, when she was a child, things like and then that's when like the cutoff of her power started, and then it just got heavier when she almost killed her daughter. Like it just got so like the block got thicker and thicker as she couldn't control these things. So like I really do think it was like love was the key. So look at Mr. Marvel, like okay.
Well, after I got past the fact that there wasn't going to be like real big action, I was like, okay, let's figure out what's going on here.
No, I love that. Marley, I got to say thank you to Marley. He gave our one of the first, this channel's very first gift subscription. He gifted a subscription to Miraculous Muncie. I'm not sure if Muncie's still here, but you did just get a subscription to the Real Study.
So cool.
Welcome to the theater.
Yeah, there he is.
There he is. Awesome. So yeah, thank you for that.
Marley, you're really great.
So yeah, Mr. Marvelite, bringing the metaphors and bringing the movie to life with some analogy or some analysis. I'm loving it. And I think there is a lot of that, and that's
I didn't though. I didn't have anything. That's fine. That's all right.
You did. No, I think that being that it is a drama, that's kind of what I was referring to. Being that it's a drama first and a sci-fi second, it's going to rely heavier on the more dramatic tropes, and those are metaphoric.
I feel like me and Mr. Marvel, I hit it more on the head than you do. But it's
Sure.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's the hats. That's what it is.
Exactly. We synced up today.
I should get rid of the beanie, and we should do the bald and the hats. I think that would probably be good.
Shirts and skins.
Shirts and skins.
Hats and
Let's
skins.
not.
You guys have hats. We're the skins. We're good.
Okay.
I'll be a shirt for sure. Yeah.
Great meter. Y'all don't want to see that.
You said PG-13, right? That was like
By the way, if you ever want to see Mr. Marvelite without his beard, if you just follow his wife on TikTok, she's posted a great video of him without a beard, and it's great. It's fantastic.
Ooh, I haven't seen that. I gotta go.
Yeah.
I had to put it out there. Only because it's a wonderful happy anniversary.
Yeah, it's a sweet little
and happy anniversary. You guys just had an anniversary, right? Like recently.
Yes, November 10th. Yep.
Happy anniversary, sir.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yep, she hasn't left me yet.
Happy anniversary.
Gotta keep hoping. All right, so Fast Color. Do you guys have anything else you want to say about it? There was one I wanted to say, actually. I loved when she was starting to gain the power back, when she started to be able to see the color again. The colors, I think is what they said, that she accidentally reformed a cloud behind her, and then when she lost her concentration, it just rained that one bit right into that one spot. I really liked that. Subtle, but big foreshadowing to what was coming.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that everybody's powers were connected, but just used in different ways. In a way, like very similar. Like she was like reforming clouds, right? But the daughter literally stole tools from the store by disintegrating the bag and then reforming them, which I thought was just like,
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
That bothered me
Yeah.
a little bit because I'm thinking if she can like dissolve tools until they get back to the house, why couldn't she just take that door down? Like really?
she's not as powerful.
I think
But
her
she
Yeah.
killed the
grandmother was
entire-
holding the door up too a little bit. I have a feeling to keep her protected that Bo was keeping the door up because she then disintegrated the door later, and they show the same door more than one. Like I don't know the
Yeah,
way
it
it
makes
seemed cinematically, it seemed like she might have been involved.
I just feel like she wasn't as like powerful for one, and wasn't as comfortable because remember when we first saw her do the bowl thing, it's like she hesitated, like she stuttered for a minute, and then she was able to do it. And when she tried to do the door, the same thing happened. Like she got it a little bit, and then it was like it was too much, and she backed off. I feel like it was
too dense or something.
It was like it was too much for her at that time. But I mean, the power tools or something she can carry in her hand. I think that was
they're like smaller, like right.
less to condense than like a four door. Yeah.
So where did the
Also to
guns go?
mention, she just never put them back together.
I think they just turned to dust on the
Can't she
ground,
just
didn't they?
later on put them back together whenever she's alone and have like 12 guns?
Yeah.
Because remember, he said if it's not broke, you can like fix
Right.
it. You know?
Yeah.
But if it's broke, like if
Bring
it's
it back.
broke naturally, you can't.
It's always gonna be broke. Yeah.
You know, if it's already broke or something like that, you can't put it back together or something.
I do like how that drove Leela.
Leela.
I like how it drove Leela to become a fix-it person. Like if she couldn't do it with her power, she had to learn how to do it in
she
real
was
life.
like troubleshooting and like
I think her name was Lila. I think her name was Lila.
Yeah, Lila.
Yeah, I think it was Lila.
Yeah. I'm looking at
I was like-
IMDb.
I was like,
I've been
who's
trying to
Rob?
do that more. So anyway.
To the effect of everybody was saying that it kind of dropped off at the end, and there seemed like there was more story to tell. Before we were talking, I think before Black Girl Marvel came in, and before we started the show, I was sharing with the guys that this movie actually had the intent of doing a series on like Amazon, and the only reason I know that is if you guys haven't seen Real Color, or Fast Color, let me just say this: if you have Amazon Prime or Prime Video, you can actually do a 7-day free trial with Epix, and you can watch it, and then 7 days later, you can just make sure you don't renew it, and you've got it done. So that's
I think
how
you
did it,
just
'cause
made
I
you
wasn't
just
sure how
made
to-
them some money because people will forget.
Well,
So.
if they start hearing that, we sent them, then maybe they'll figure it out at some point to pay us for it.
You know,
But
I was thinking about that
regardless-
with this movie because this is a small movie. If we had enough people watching it and enough people bought it or rented it, that could show up as a blip. You know, a little.
Yeah.
I just watched it on Hulu.
Yeah.
I
The
bought
thing
it.
I love about Amazon Prime or Prime Video is the fact that there's like that X-ray feature where you can see all of these trivia things, and it's definitely good because you're most of the time if I'm watching a film and there's this actor that I don't know the name of off the top of my head, I'll have to go Google search it and then figure out which one it was. Whereas with Amazon, when you scroll over or depending on how you do it, it'll tell you which actors are in that scene and they'll tell you the trivia or the issues. And it was like I think there was one part where I was watching where they said 18 minutes into the film was where the writer actually had a hard time figuring out where the movie was going. And it was like at that point, because like at that point it was just like they were having a difficult. It was really interesting trivia. And I was trying to focus so much on the story. I should have gone back and watched more of it, but it was definitely interesting.
Wow, that's crazy.
That is interesting. To that, we do have one more film we need to discuss this evening. We have 34 minutes left. Let's give our ratings for Fast Color and let's move forward. Lala, this was your pick. What's your rating?
I give this movie an 8 because it's a thinker. I like thinker movies. Like I can see myself going back and rewatching it to see the points that you guys hit on, to see, to go back and see if I see it see it that way, or go back around it. Like, so it's a rewatchable film for me. It's very interesting. I do feel like my first time watching, I probably have missed a lot of things that I probably can go back and reanalyze and and rethink some things. I think 12-year-old me would not have gotten this movie. It would have been like 6, like 5 or something. Like 12-year-old me would get this movie. But yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. How about you, all the movie things?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5. Mostly like just pacing, like it's been mentioned in the chat. Like I think it would have really benefited from a series because I think they were trying to really develop some character that just ran out of time, and you know,
Mhm.
and so 7.5 for me. It was good, and I like what they were trying to do. You know, and I'm a fan of like indie sci-fi stuff. Um, and 12-year-old me, I'm probably with Lala. I probably like younger me would have been like, I want to see more action or something. Like they got these abilities, and yeah, but that's where I'm at.
All right, Mr. Marvelite.
It's gonna sound like me and all the movie things are on the same page like the whole night so far. I'm not probably gonna say a 7.5 as well. It was a good film. I think there were some really good points, and of course, she saw I wax philosophical at some point. Just because I finally got to the idea of it wasn't a superhero film, and I think it's very important. Like a lot of people, if you try to say it's like a supernatural or it's people with
Mhm.
abilities, I would say it's more of like a sci-fi drama, and that's the
Yeah,
best way I would say, because I don't think they have powers. I just think it's a group of individuals with abilities.
yeah,
And so I'm not sure if it would be rewatchable for me. I think if there was something more going into it,
mhm,
like a series or something that we actually did get, it would definitely be a good springboard to watch again before that hit. Because I probably would be interested to at least
yeah,
watch the first couple episodes to see, where they were going with it if it was something I liked. I didn't like
hmm,
any of the protagonist or the antagonists, because I felt like they just weren't
yeah,
developed at all.
They were non-existent.
yep,
Yeah, I
they
agree.
they were they
yeah,
were
yeah,
there,
totally.
but the only one you knew was Bill, and then everybody else was like this faceless white government person.
Yeah,
That
Um,
yeah,
works though.
and so yeah, well, yeah, it does. Um, and then like the sheriff and stuff, like I just felt like, and again, he was more of a side character in the sense, but then you got that one little heartfelt story. But again, I still
hmm,
liked it. I thought it was good. I definitely think it's always worth at first, like at least one watch. And then you base your decisions off of that. So I can't really sway people. I would never say don't watch it, because I think it's at least worth watching again. My wife
hmm,
asked me if I was going to watch it again. I go, "No, probably not."
yeah,
I don't often say don't watch a movie. I think people should make up their own minds pretty much with any film. There are ones that I'll say if you like XYZ, you may not like this film.
Mm,
So yeah, if you don't like slow paced films at all, this is not your bag. This
hmm,
movie is definitely the way that all the movie things said it when we got in here, and he mentioned it again on stream here. It was a drip, not even like a.
no pun intended.
It was well,
right,
it was like you'd be going along. You're like, okay, what are they doing? Okay, piece of information. What are they doing? What
yeah,
are they doing? What are
yeah, a
they?
little,
Piece of
yeah,
I
information.
just wanted them to have one conversation where they didn't get interrupted by something.
Like a flashback or another cut to another scene. So
Yep.
mm,
Um, I'm going to give this movie a 7.5 as well. I'm going to definitely say that it's worth a watch. Very interesting. I think there's enough there that you could study
mhm,
this film a bit. I don't know if it would hold up after more than one viewing, like some films that are studied. But I definitely think there's a deeper richness to the screenplay than maybe a first viewing would give you. I agree
mhm,
across the board. Um, there it is. I don't really have much else to say. You guys have kind of said it all. So yeah, Fast Color. Give that a watch if you are interested. We are going to move into the last film of the evening. That is A Knight's Tale, which was Mr. Marvelite's redemption pick. This is, of course, 2001 with Heath Ledger, Alan Tudyk, as well as, man, my brain
Paul
does not want to
Bettany.
remember, Paul Bettany, thank you, Rufus
mhm,
Silwell, Mark Addy, and then some
Love
other
Mark.
names. Um,
What's her name? Shannon Sossman.
Shannon Susselman, and then
Laura
the other
Frazier,
girl was Laura Frazier. Yep. So those are
Denise
the
Bale.
primaries. And it is the story of William the poor man wanting to be a knight. Um, the things I found interesting, and I'm assuming we've all seen this film. Okay, so we've all
oh
seen
yeah,
it, which means we can kind of
multiple times.
we don't need to necessarily even do an initial reaction because this would be like the 20th viewing I've had of it. But I had a
Yeah,
much better time this time than before, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the show or just wanting to analyze movies a little more lately. But I got the IMDb out watching this one, read through a lot of the trivia, and enjoyed looking into the Geoffrey Chaucer stuff and
Oh yes.
the connection to the Canterbury Tales and all that kind of stuff was really fun for me. Um, Paul Bettany plays Geoffrey Chaucer, who was a writer, and this is supposed to take place during the 1 year of his life that is unaccounted for. And he even makes reference at the end of the film about how he should write this all down. And it's wonderfully the very first story in the Canterbury Tales is The Knight's Tale, so which is not the same story at all.
Yeah.
Right.
But that is a nice nod. So the writer went out of his writer director went out of his way to try to make sure that he added these fun elements. So that's my little piece of information, just because it's fun and I wanted to talk about it.
Sure.
Mr. Marvelite, this was your redemption. What do you want to talk about with A Knight's Tale?
So this is a film that I could watch at any moment of any day, anytime, over and over again, and I would still just love it as much as I watched it the first time. I loved Heath Ledger's character, William Thatcher, who pretends to be Ulrich von Liechtenstein, and it's great though because the whole thing springboards off the fact that he was a squire for a knight who dies while taking a crap right before he goes to do jousting, and like just that like realization. And you have Alan Tiddick, who is basically beating on the dead knight trying to wake him up, and there's like this whole big thing. And so just the camaraderie amongst those three poor men who decide to to pull this huge ruse, and this overlying concept. And it's kind of been like a thing for my life. A man can change his stars, and that is like the ultimate thing, because you had William Thatcher, who was not a knight pretending to be a knight, who was more of a knight than his antagonist was throughout the film, because the man was too full of himself and everything else. And William was easily just going into that world, and where he struggled with all of the knightly things. But when you have Prince Philip, was it Prince Edward at the end, and he's talking to William, and he says, if I knew anything more than that your men that your men loved you, I would need to know nothing else. And he's like, and that is a knightly quality. And I get chills when I think of that. The the script was fantastic. I think there's not a throwaway scene in the entire thing. I think everything just kind of plays on building up that relationship with them. It's a motley crew that kind of all accidentally happened at one time. Paul Bettany, I mean, if I wouldn't have watched, I fell in love with Iron Man knowing that Paul Bettany was Jarvis before I even fell in love with Tony Stark as Robert Downey Jr. And it was just that voice. And then when they let him do Vision, I was like, yes, Chaucer's a robot. And you have this this excitement, and of course, every kid in high school goes through reading the Canterbury Tales, and everyone's all excited because it's the most inappropriate thing that you'll read. When you get into when you're in high school, and having those references kind of like hit all of those little notes for me. I loved how they added the modern music that fit well into this period piece, and they did it in a way that didn't make it cringy. It was just kind of fun, and you just took it lightly.
So to that, real quick, the director actually made a point. He said the reason he did that is he knew that just playing Renaissance music would never hit for us because we didn't listen to it, and we hear it and we just assume it's a Renaissance fair. So he put that in there as a major part of the music, because you still hear some medieval music, in order to convey exactly what you would have felt in those moments. And I think the scene where they're dancing to the minstrel music and then it switches to golden years is a perfect example of that, because even their dance style changes to match a more modern dance style. And I think they did a really good job of cutting between those.
Even the "We Will Rock You" at the beginning, getting the excitement of the crowd, like that was perfect. because it's like if you were to really hear all the ditties that they would have played during a joust, it wouldn't have been exciting for us.
Yeah, you're not getting pumped up.
But "We Will Rock You" is something you hear in stadiums when you're going to watch sports games and everything else, and it's just a crowd pleaser. So you can kind of relate to the characters and all of the things that they're doing, and of course they're throwing the turkey legs and everything else around. And it's just like you can picture yourself in that period because it's very reflective of what we see now.
Lala, what do you think of Knight's Tale this time around?
I will say, This movie holds a special place in my heart because it reminds me of my godfather. Because I remember going over to my godparents' house, and this was like right after I saw Heath Ledger and like 10 Things I Hate About You, and obviously I was obsessed, just like every girl in 1999 when they saw him. And so I was trying to consume everything that I want. I got everything that he ever did, not knowing that like that was like around some of the first things that he did, like not realizing that. And my godfather had I think it was a DVD. I think he had a DVD of this, and I watched it at his house and was like loved every minute of it. And then I was like, "Can I have it?" And he was like, "Sure, I don't watch it." Gave it to me, and I still have it like to this day. And so it just reminds me of like my godparents. Like it has like that nostalgic moment for me. But then also it's just a good film. For me, A Knight's Tale does what that Cinderella movie couldn't do, what tried to do. And it tried to bridge a gap between like old timey and modern, and that Cinderella movie just fell extremely flat. And I feel like A Knight's Tale is a big example, shining example of how you take a period piece but still put modern music and make it work. Um, Also, the acting is just top notch. Everybody in the film now is like, rest in peace to Heath Ledger because I always wanted to work with him and I'll never get that chance. But um, everyone in the film had amazing careers after that. I didn't realize until like I kind of like started watching this again that I really fell in love with Paul Bettany in this movie. I felt like he gave like one of the best, maybe like right next to Heath Ledger as like performances go for me. Um, and then later on in my years, I read the Canterbury Tales and became obsessed with the Canterbury Tales because of I knew that it was like this was kind of like based around it and it took his name from it and things like that. And so like I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I thought it was funny. I love that Shannon Sossaman's character was not your typical like old timey type of woman. She was very modern in her thinking.
Oh,
Very ahead of her
the way she retorted to the priest, where she was like, "Oh, I laugh because I can't do anything else. It's my way of dealing with my emotions."
stops me from crying. You know what I mean? Like and he's like, "Oh yes," and she's like, "Nice ring." Like I'm about to kiss your hand, guy. Like so like her character was very like it was showing like feminism before anybody would ever thought it was a thing or even wanted to talk about it. And she was very strong. She knew what she wanted. And Heath Ledger is just a charming little son of a bitch. And so I just really love this film. This is a film that I can probably watch anytime. And I know it's like 2 hours, and I know for Ray, like she was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, she said at 50 minutes at a 1.5 speed, she couldn't finish it.
Yeah, so it's a lot for me. And I was like, but for me, I'm like, it's never enough, because it just sits so well for me. It just shows how you can be what you feel is a commoner, but rise above it and become something more.
Sure. All the movie things.
So
this is one of those movies I remember, like when this was coming out, and like I remember the trailers for it, and this is one of those films where I was like, that looks kind of stupid, and so yeah, and like I was like, okay, this is not gonna be good, and then I was proven wrong, like times 100, and I freaking loved it and just had a blast with it. And yeah, like Paul Bettany is like so funny in it, and just like the idea of like back then like having like a hype man, for you.
He is the hype man.
He's the MC, like what is like that? They're not doing that, but it's just that idea of having that is so good. And it's like it's almost like they're like this whole like con man crew, like they're all in on the gag, and they're trying to keep it going, and it's just it's like multiple genres thrown in there, and it's just fun. Yeah, and the music. I mean, everyone's hit on everything that I totally agree with too. It's the music like surprises you, like you think it's not gonna work, and there's like, no man, this is like I can't imagine anything else being there now, with that music.
I think it would be boring without it. I think if you were to
Yeah.
reshoot this film and just do a Renaissance
Yeah,
music
just a
overlay,
straight traditional.
it,
Yeah.
it might be charming, but it would feel a little hokier.
Yeah, I
You
feel
know,
like it would be out of balance with like the comedy and like the like over the top idea that they're trying to do. I
right.
feel like that it
Well,
balances out really
Watt's
well.
character alone is so over the top. You know, the pain. You know,
Yeah,
like he's like, you know,
so good.
there'll be what did he saying? A flog, not a flogging, but a fog. No,
Yeah,
is it flogging?
plugging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
think if they redid, I think if they redid this movie, it would have to be. It couldn't be a comedy without them really just taking it the same way that the original film did. It would have to
Yeah,
be
I
the
hope they
same.
never remake this film.
Oh,
I
for sure. No,
know.
no, no. I don't want that. Let's not
Yeah.
do that. But I'm just saying, if they did it, I don't think they could go the comedic route. They would have. It would have to be in the same vein as like The Last Duel, right? It couldn't be hokey. It couldn't be funny. It couldn't.
Yeah,
It
it
would have to
probably
be
have to be like a
really
dark
taken
version
I think it
of
seriously.
only
it
It
or
had
works
to
for
be
something.
this film.
Yeah,
it might be darker. It couldn't be for me.
yeah.
They couldn't be like, let's remake a comedy and do it again as a comedy.
Yeah, let's just
Because it's like,
redo it.
what
Like,
are you going to change? Like, where do you like? No, like just
yeah,
it
Well,
was
that's
there's
when you
nothing
get
more to.
Ghostbusters remakes.
Well, those weren't
Eh.
for us, but anyway. I keep
But
telling
yeah,
people that
I just like
somebody was
I
like
just like the
Shang-Chi, I
idea
hated
that
it.
like
I'm like, it wasn't for you.
yeah,
That's why you didn't like it.
yeah.
Like,
I tell
I
people that
mean,
all the time. I
See,
do
here's the
that
thing.
with Star
I
Wars.
like Ghostbusters. I like the remake. There was a quintessential issue that I had with that film, and it was because it tried to pretend like the other movies didn't exist. And I thought that the best way to do that was to allow it to be in the same world, but let the women take over. And I thought individually they could have been great, but I thought they were making too much fun of themselves. That's the only thing they were
but
trying
that's
too hard
those
to undo.
actresses like comedy style, so they were going
Oh
with
yeah,
what worked for them. Anyway, let's get back to this
yes.
because there is one problem I have with A Knight's Tale, and it stuck out
Oh,
to me. So the very first time I saw this movie, and it's driven me crazy even this time.
oh,
And everybody's going to disagree with me, and everybody always has. But this was
Yeah,
the
I already
one
do.
thing.
I don't even
This
know
is
what
the
it is. I
one thing
already
that drives me
disagree.
nuts about this film, and it is the moment at the end where he's knighted Sir William Thatcher, which is ironic in itself. Sir Thatcher, that doesn't work anyway. So he's knighted Sir William, and then in order to win that joust, he screams his name. I wouldn't scream Mr. Snidbits as I tried to attack my foe. That's the one thing. It's a little thing, but it bothers me.
What wasn't that because it was like a family name and it was like had to do with like wasn't he trying to like honor his father? I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
I thought
I
that's
don't
what
know.
it was.
I didn't
oh,
catch that
right.
even this time around. Go ahead, Mr.
So
Moore.
let me try. Here we go. All right. So basically, if you go back, the entire time was that antagonist that he was going against. He could never beat him as Ulrich von Liechtenstein, and it was almost the idea that he was a fake at that point, and he felt like beating him would make him the legitimate hero, would make him the legitimate winner. Because
Sure.
until he beat that guy, all of those other wins while he was off at war meant nothing to him because he still was focused on that one man who humiliated him. Because in spite of him having the armor, him having the abilities, beating that guy was the purpose of him feeling vindicated for who he was. The moment Prince Edward knighted him and made him Sir William Thatcher, and his father was there and everything else, Ulrich von Liechtenstein no longer had to beat this guy. William Thatcher just had to be himself because at that point he was worthy. He was a knight. It didn't matter what ended up happening. He was just going to live being the person he was because he was not knighted out of deceit or anything else at that point. It was the moment when he became knighted by Edward because of him being a good man, and it didn't matter at that point. So when he yelled his name, that was him acknowledging who he was and having nothing held back, and he was worthy already. And so when he yelled it, it was almost as if it was just like his victory cry because whatever happened, he was still who he was. Beating this guy wasn't going to make him more or less a knight at all. He already had the girl. He already had the name. That's just what it is.
So I guess maybe had he
It's more like
yelled
tag
it
me
in
in.
his head, like had I heard
Tag
an
me.
echo. I had heard an echo,
Tag.
and then anyway, go ahead, Lala, please.
Mark, like, tag me in. Tag me in. Come on. Give me my hand. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. No, I just wanted to say I really just think it was because this whole time, like pretty much from the beginning of the film, he's been living a lie or been living as someone else. And for the first time, he gets to be himself. And I feel like that was just a moment where he can like live within himself. He yelled his name out. It's still weird. Don't get me wrong. It's weird.
You also
But
notice
I
in the
think
film,
he's able
like,
to just be himself for the first time. You know, he's able to like live in that truth. And I think that was for me, the way I
Mhm.
looked at it, that was like part of it.
and you notice every time his name is referenced, like it was always amongst those people that were closest to him. And when his love interest, like she goes, he's like, you're Sir Ulrich, but your friend, those that are closest to you call you William. That was a secret. Like he couldn't be proud of his name because his name was his weakness.
I did like he was
So
honest
him,
with her immediately when she asked. I thought that was very honorable. He was like, "Yes, they do call me William," and like
yeah.
they alluded to the secret. I liked that. Okay, so what you guys just said helped me bridge a gap. So maybe I'll finally let this go. Because there are the moments, and I mentioned one myself, the moment where they go from Renaissance music to modern music, and the mood changes, and we see kind of behind the curtain to what's really going on from our perspective. Maybe that William moment is one of those where he's not really yelling it; we're just hearing him yell it.
I get that.
Whatever you need to get you over that.
It's always, I don't know. It's also my dad's name, so I'd be like, would my dad yell his own name? If he was drunk, maybe, but not.
Yes, if he couldn't live in his truth and say his name without
Yeah.
it being a secret, he probably would yell his name if given the chance.
Plus,
Yeah.
if you're gonna beat this guy who's been talking crap to you the entire time, I want him to remember the name that's beating the crap out
Yeah.
of him at that
Okay.
moment is the name he's
Right.
been mocking.
Now he likes that, but look at his face change.
No, that moment where he's flat on his back, even though
Got
you
it.
can tell he's kind of hovered
You've
above,
been
he's
tried,
laying on a
tested, and
board.
found wanting.
That,
Right, yeah,
yes, is one of the best scenes in the whole film, and
I mean,
it's set up
let's,
so
let's
well.
call it spade a spade. Who
Right.
hasn't wanted to punch Rufus Sewell?
So
in the
I
face?
got to give Rufus
Right.
Sewell. Okay,
In
I
any
want to do
film he's
this.
been in.
Right.
Just
There
saying.
are probably 20 actors who deserve 100,000 times more credit than they've ever gotten because we all hate them. And that means they did their job
Yeah, that makes
perfectly.
yeah, right, exactly.
Rufus
Agreed.
Sewell is one of those people that when I see him, I want to punch him. I just want to punch him in his face.
Yep.
And I love you for that, man. I just want to say thank you for your work, and I want to punch you, and it's awesome. It's true with Joffrey from the Game of Thrones. It's true with and I don't know the actor's name. This is terrible, but Dickless from Ghostbusters. He's been called Dickless
yeah.
for 40 years.
Mhm.
Poor guy.
Oh.
But
Mhm.
those are the
He's in, I
actors.
hate him in.
He's also in Die Hard as a
Yeah, he's a jerk in Die Hard as well.
Yes,
jerk in
yes.
Die Hard.
And he gets punched a lot in Die Hard, so
He
that's
does.
Oh,
good.
yeah.
He's a great. He plays it perfectly. I mean, I guess if I was ever to be an actor, they're not going to put me as a leading man. They would put me as a guy at a bar fight, or
Like a
they
character
put
actor.
they'd put me
Yeah.
in to match this. And so I get it. There are those people. So if you're just if you look like you have basic,
Yes.
I think if you have resting
It's-
bitch face, you get to be an asshole in Hollywood. I
It's
think
kind
that's
of
just
like
the
if you
rule.
go through
Yeah.
Hollywood, you go down Hollywood Boulevard, and it's like, hey, you have a punchable face. I have a role for you.
Yeah, I got a punchable role for you.
Yes.
I love it.
Mhm.
But then how do you
Honestly,
break out of
no,
that?
you guys don't want to.
Who wants
Just
to?
own it. Just
Just
go with it.
go with it. It
Yeah,
worked for him.
that's right.
Honestly, I feel like the only way you can break out of that is by doing a indie film where you're like the love interest, so you could build
Yeah.
a new
Sure.
resume up, right?
Uh-huh.
If you can punch, I'm telling you, I know the formulas of Hollywood, man.
Okay,
So-
here's one. John Bernthal. John Bernthal has a punchable face, and I hated him as Shane in Walking Dead.
Or
but I
the
love
Wolf of
him
Wall
as
Street
Frank
dude.
Castle.
In
Yeah.
the Wolf of Wall Street,
Yeah.
you want to
But I-
murder that guy.
Yeah, but I love John Bernthal as Frank Castle. I love him. That was a breakout for him because up until that role, I thought he had a huge punchable face.
Well,
Like,
See,
yeah.
Snitty, that's another reason to watch Dark City. Rufus Sewell is the lead in Dark City.
I know, and he did a great job, and I think
Yeah.
he's better than Kiefer
Yeah.
Sutherland in that film. Actually,
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
I think Kiefer's
The
dad is a far
he's
better
less
actor. But
punchable facing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, no, so Paul Bettany lost his voice doing this, but you can tell because he screamed a
Oh
lot.
man, I bet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of the other because there were a couple of
That
really
doesn't surprise
fun
me.
trivia bits that were a little bit different. Oh, the moment where they're doing the "We Will Rock You" and right after that, where Chaucer gives his very first speech to the crowd and nobody does anything. That's actually a gaffe that's left in. The crowd was from the Czech Republic and they didn't understand the cue from the English speaking actor. And so the actor from the scene, Mark Addy, actually went, "Oh," and it actually got all the Czech extras to jump in and they left it because it looked like
love
they had never
that.
experienced that Paul Bettany kind of
Yeah.
Chaucer
Oh,
thing. So that
that's
was a
cool.
fantastic
Yeah,
bit of
yeah, yeah.
trivia.
That's fun.
The quote where Chaucer did the "You're good, you're very good." And he goes, "My lords, my ladies," and everybody else not sitting on a cushion.
Mhm.
Like, I loved the shock on all of the royals or all of the
Mhm, mhm.
the higher ups, because they all had this shock to it, because it was they never nobody had ever talked to the commoners, and it
Yeah,
was always to the lords. And so I thought it was one of my favorite scenes.
yeah.
Now, let's say you're
Yeah,
a,
I
a
like that.
lesser like duke or something in France or
Mhm.
whatever. Does that mean if you're a kid that you have a collection of flags for your favorite knights, much like trading cards now? Because that's what I was getting the impression of, that they like some people collected their
Yeah.
favorite, like Ulrich von Liechtenstein flags.
Mhm.
Um,
I would
also,
be
there's another one.
surprised.
Ulrich von Liechtenstein is from Gelderland, which is a real place,
So,
and they said that when they released this film in Gelderland, they laughed their ass off because this isn't that's they completely misrepresented the place that he was from, which is fantastic.
which is what they would do, because they had no idea what they were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. No, so
The
it's cute.
Cadence of Nobilities.
Mhm.
Yeah, I loved how he just came along and wrote that up. No problem. That was no big deal. Brian Hegland, the director, this was like a passion project for him. It seemed like. I'm trying to get to him. Sorry, I'm trying not to just waste time here on the show. But he's done a lot of great things, and this is weird
Mhm.
because if you look at his other films like 42 or Man on Fire, LA Confidential, they're not the same kind of writing style. They're actually a lot more serious. This is much more jokey. So I'd say for a screenwriter, he's got quite a nice range. I don't think you see that as often as screenwriters. They're very niche specific. I see, but that's me. I'm just chatting for no reason. We literally have minutes left, so we're at the end of A Knight's Tale, and
Came in under the wire.
We
Nice.
need to do our review, our scores.
We do. We got to do our scores, and then
Yeah.
we can look at maybe potentially doing a raid. So why don't we go with Mr. Marvelite since you did pick the film? What is your
Okay, so
current
we had this discussion, I
rating?
believe it was last week. And first of all, I want to say this because I believe All the Movie Things did a TikTok about favorite montages.
Mm.
Mhm.
This movie has all of my favorite montages. Just all of the training,
That's
training
cool.
session, him
Yeah.
going through the ring, taking care of business where he's doing the
Yeah.
sword fight. Like it was
Yeah.
just all of it.
He's
I
getting
just
like
loved it.
roughed up. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like all of my
Yeah.
favorite montages. But we talked about this
That's
last week
good.
about how we really reserve tens for just those movies that we just love. And
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
me, this is a 10 for me. This has always been a 10 for me.
Wow.
This has been a 10
Nice.
for me for years. That doesn't mean that the movies that I rate lower than this are not maybe,
Right.
let's say, better production wise or story wise. This film just brings out all of the feels. I
Mhm.
have literally watched this movie at least 1,000 times or more.
Oh,
Because if
man.
I kid you not, I will watch a film, and whether I like the film or not, I will put A Knight's Tale on
Damn.
after it.
Okay.
I will put
This
A
is
Knight's
your
Tale on
palate
after
cleanser.
it. Yes, this is my palate cleanser.
Yeah, there
Just
you
like if
go.
you're smelling perfume, you have to smell some coffee beans.
Yeah, smell some coffee.
This is my neutralizer, because if I am in a bad mood, I will put this movie on. If I am doing work in my man
like
cave
that.
or like doing stuff, I will put this movie on. This is my go-to film.
This is your
And it
ginger
has-
root.
This is, I don't know.
Mhm.
It's
Sushi.
Yeah, it's yes.
Yeah.
But I love this film. I can
Cool.
understand people not liking it, and they can have their qualms about it, but it's not going to ever change my opinion.
Did you hear that, Ray? He's calling
you.
you out. He's calling you out hard.
This film, my Blu-ray
All those
copy.
people are wrong.
Yes, my Blu-ray will probably either be buried with me or cremated with me when I'm done. So that's just how.
I'm surprised this wasn't your first selection. You've picked
Pass
other
it
movies
on.
before
Pass
this.
it
You
on
must
to your-
not have been thinking about it. No.
No,
All the movie
I
things.
just-
What's your rating on this?
Wait. You
Yeah,
want to pass this on to your son? It's a legacy
yeah, that's what I
film.
was saying. You gotta pass this
No,
on.
that's a
He's
fair
gonna have
point.
his own
Yeah.
copy. This is a rite of passage when he turns 13.
Yeah.
He'll
Go
he'll
buy
go to
your
the velvet
own.
box. Yes.
I'll try to finish it, she says. Now
No,
she's-
Ray,
she's-
don't feel
I'll
pressure.
try to finish it.
the end is good. Like it really
Dude,
does
two-
build up to a good ending.
Two
so.
times speed.
You'll find
You'll
a
get it
scene
in
you
there.
like, I hope.
Yeah, you gotta.
So,
Me,
all the movies
I give
are-
it a 9. Yeah, this is just a fun. I could really watch this. I've not seen this 1,000 times. I've seen it quite a few times though, but it is definitely one that I know I'm gonna have a good time watching. And I just, I find different, and like I love each character, on his crew. Like Alan Tudyk's great, and I just love Paul Bettany stuff that he does, and it's so fun. Yeah, I give it a 9.
I like it. You know who we didn't mention this entire time was the female person on his crew. The blacksmith never got mentioned once, which I thought
Oh
was
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
She was one of my
And
favorites because I felt like she was creating stuff that like was ahead of her time. She was like,
Yeah.
and they were like making fun of her, but realizing that she was way better than any of the other blacksmiths, like men blacksmiths
Yeah.
that was around, because she was the only female. Like I remember that was a point that stuck out to me when I was younger, and it just hits better now as I'm older to just be like, that is a rare character you see in a movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah.
What's your
She's
rating
great.
on it while you're there?
Oh, I give this film a solid 9.5 because I will never give anything.
Ooh.
About as
Nice.
high as it's gonna get
Wow.
for you, though.
Good.
But I will get a
Good for you.
9.5 because I love Heath Ledger. I've seen this film 500 times.
So between the three of
And-
us, we've seen it as many times as Mr. Marvelette over here.
Exactly.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I've seen this about 500 times. Like I said, it's great nostalgia. I've always been obsessed with this time period, even though they didn't like white people. But I know I'm crazy, and but I've always been obsessed with this time period. I'll watch anything that's
cool.
rooted around this time.
So, like, you
period.
liked Timeline with Gerard Butler. Good answer. Okay, so
Yeah, 9.5. Yeah.
I'm gonna also
Sweet.
give it a 9.5. Only because I don't know, it just sounds right. 9.5. I'm gonna give it a 9.5.
Mhm.
Last little piece of trivia that I've got is the symbol that the blacksmith used was literally just 2 upside down swooshes from Nike, and it is because Nike was a sponsor on this film, and that was the only way they could actually put Nike in the film. And they loved it because Phil Knight is the owner of Nike, and Knight's Tale.
Yep.
They were very happy to
Yep.
be sponsors. So that was silly.
Little Northwest connection.
Yeah, right here in my hometown, actually.
That's
Phil Knight's
right.
from Eugene, right here in Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah. Headquarters is down the road from me.
Yep. Actually, I think I'm like 5 minutes from Prefontaine's Hayward Field, and then Pre's Rock is literally
Oh, yeah.
at the top of the hill above me, which is crazy. Anyway, if you guys
cool.
don't know who
Yeah.
Prefontaine was, look up Running.
There's 2 movies about him.
There are.
that came out around the same time. Too.
A really high production one, and then a Jared Leto
Yeah.
lower production one, which the Leto one is actually the better film, in my opinion. That being said, we are going to go ahead and raid a guy named Kyle Driver. He's a TikToker. I don't know him, but he and I are follow each other on here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I am Mr. Snidbits. Below me is all the movie things. Over to my catty corner is Black Girl Marvel, and to my left would be Mr. Marvelite. We are the Real Study panel, and this has been the Real Study. Thank you, guys.
Have a wonderful night.
Thanks, everyone.
We really love you.
We really do. Thank you for all the time you guys come and watch us. And I'm going to talk until we raid, because that takes time. And we can always chop
raids
this off.
Raids always get on my nerves. Always get on my nerves.
Giving
I don't know
raids?
if they're like- No, raiding. I got try to raid people when I'm on my stream if I can. I don't know if it's working, so I always ask somebody. I'm like, let me know if it's working. And I always have my guy Shelly like, it was working. I'm like, yes.
Is that your guy Shelly that just followed? Sheldon 690, somebody named Sheldon just followed. Thank you for the follow. Join us as we raid, Sheldon.
Sheldon's a great raider.
And
You know,